Okay, so did you know that the average home buyer in Hampton Roads is shocked by an extra of $10, $12, $15, $18,000 in closing costs that sometimes they didn't budget for? Friends, that's right. Thousands of dollars beyond your down payment that many first-time home buyers don't even realize they need until they're knee-deep in the home buying process. Now, guys, listen, I've heard stories of this happening countless times. A military family might be relocating to Norfolk. They found their perfect home in Ghent. They get approved for their loan, they have their down payment saved, and then panics when they learn about all the additional closing costs that they need to bring to the table. Now today, I'm pulling back the curtain on exactly what closing costs you'll face when buying a home in Hampton Roads in 2025. So listen, I'm going to break down every fee. I'm going to explain what fees are negotiable and which ones are not. I'm actually even going to share actual numbers from a recent closing, and most importantly, I'm going to show you how to reduce these costs so you can keep more money in your pocket. Now, whether you're using a VA loan, an FHA loan, or a conventional loan, this closing cost guide is going to give you the complete picture of what you'll actually pay at closing beyond your down payment. There's no sugarcoating, no vague estimates, just real numbers so that you can be prepared. Now, friends, grab a notepad because understanding these costs could save you thousands when you close on your Hampton Roads dream home. Okay, so let's start with the basics. What exactly are closing costs and how do they differ from your down payment? Guys, that's a question that I get all the time, especially from a first-time home buyer. So let me break it down for you. Your down payment is the portion of your home price that you pay up front, which is going to reduce the amount that you need to borrow from your lender. For example, if you're buying a $350,000 home in Virginia Beach and you have a 3.5% down payment, that's $12,250 that's going directly toward the purchase of your home. Now, closing costs, however, are the additional fees associated with processing your loan and transferring ownership of the property to you. These don't contribute to your equity. They're simply the cost of completing the transaction. Does that make sense? Think of it this way. If buying a home is like purchasing an airline ticket, the down payment is the actual fare, while your closing costs are all those extra fees that they add on, like the baggage fees, seat selection charges, and priority boarding. That's specifically if you're flying like Spirit. What makes Hampton Roads unique is our blend of military, waterfront, and historic properties, which can create some region-specific closing costs that you might not counter somewhere else. For instance, properties in flood zones near the Chesapeake Bay or on the Elizabeth River, they often require additional flood certifications and insurance considerations. Now, in general, you can expect closing costs in Hampton Roads to run between 3 and 5% of your loan amount, but the exact figure is going to be based on the type of loan that you're using. So that's whether you're using a VA, an FHA, or a conventional loan. They're going to also include your lender-specific fee structure, and we're going to really get into the lender fees in just a moment. It's going to be based upon the price of your home, where your property is located within our lovely 7 cities, whether or not you're in a flood zone, and believe it or not, the time of month that you're actually going to close. So just to recap, closing costs are separate from your down payment. You need both amounts available for you at closing. Now, I've worked with military buyers who had their $0 VA loan down payment covered, but they weren't always prepared for closing costs, which caused a lot of last-minute scrambling and stress. So let's break down exactly what makes up these closing costs so before you sign on the dotted line, you can be fully prepared. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first major category of closing costs is going to come from your lender. These are the fees that the bank or the mortgage company is going to charge you to process, underwrite, and fund your loan. In 2025, here's what Hampton Roads home buyers are typically seeing. Now, first, there's an origination fee. This is essentially the lender's processing charge for creating your loan. And Hampton Roads, origination fees typically range from about 0.5% to 1% of your loan amount. For example, on a $350,000 home that has a $337,750 loan, that's about after a 3.5% down payment, that's between $1,688 and $3,377. Some lenders advertise no origination fee loans, but I want you to be careful because they often compensate by charging a higher interest rate or adding other fees. So make sure you ask them. Another one is an application fee. Some lenders charge you $300 to $500 simply to process your application. I always advise my clients to work with lenders who waive this fee, as many competitive Hampton Roads lenders do so in 2025. There's also an underwriting fee. Now, this covers the cost of evaluating your financial information to determine if you qualify for the loan. Currently, underwriting fees in our region are going to be somewhere between $400 and $1,000, depending on the lender and the complexity of your loan. Now, another fee is going to be your processing fee. This is an administrative fee that covers the paperwork handling and typically runs somewhere between $300 to $600 in the Hampton Roads market. There's also a credit report fee. Lenders charge $30 to $50 to pull your credit reports from all 3 major bureaus. There's also a rate lock fee. If you choose to lock in your interest rate while you shop for a home, some lenders are going to charge a fee for this service, typically between 1/4 to 0.5% of the loan amount. However, many Hampton Roads lenders offer free rate locks for 30 to 60 days. So make sure when you talk to your lender, you ask them, hey, is this a free rate lock or do you have the ability to give that to me? So have you been thinking about relocating to Hampton Roads, Virginia? I've got just the thing for you. My team and I have actually taken the time to create the ultimate relocation guide, which is meant to save you hours of research, and I've linked it down below. From top employers, the best hospitals, and a boatload of other things that you need to know before making a move to Hampton Roads. And the best part, guys, it is 100% free. That's right, you heard me, it's 100% free. So just click on the link in the description or the top pinned comment. I hope it helps. God bless you. Now, there are also discount points. These are optional fees that you can pay to buy down your interest rate. Now, each point is going to cost you 1% of your loan amount and typically lowers your rate by about 1/4%. Now, with today's volatile interest rates, many of my clients are choosing to pay their 1 to 2 points to secure a better rate for the long term. Now, keep in mind, you can always refinance your loan at a later time. What's important to understand is that these lender fees can vary dramatically between different mortgage companies. And this is why I always recommend that my clients get loan estimates from at least 2 to 3 different lenders. I know a lot of people are nervous about shopping around, but the differences can be significant. I've seen variations of over $2,000 in lender fees for the exact same loan. For military families who are using a VA loan, some of these fees are capped or restricted, which is another reason why VA loans can be such a valuable benefit for our service members in Hampton Roads. Okay guys, so let's talk about the government's share of your closing costs, because you know Uncle Sam is going to get his. Those are taxes and recording fees. These are non-negotiable and specifically tied to Virginia state law and your specific Hampton Roads locality. Now, the first thing is a recording fee. When you buy a home, the deed and the mortgage must be recorded with your local government. In 2025, recording fees across Hampton Roads averaged about $100 to $150, though they vary slightly between our 7 cities. For example, Virginia Beach and Norfolk tend to be on the higher end, while Suffolk and Portsmouth are slightly a little bit lower. Now, another governmental or state fee is a grantor's tax. In Virginia, sellers usually pay this tax at a rate of $1 per $1,000 of the sales price. So even though it's technically a seller's cost, it's important to understand as it may factor in some of your negotiations. Now, there's also a Virginia state transfer tax, which is about 25 cents of $100 of the sales price, or let's say $2.50 per every $1,000. And on a $350,000 home, that's about $875 in a transfer tax. Now, something specific to Hampton Roads is a regional congestion relief fee. This additional tax applies to property transfers in our region at a rate of about 15 cents per $100 of value, and they usually add about $525 to the closing costs on a $350,000 home. Now, there's also city and county transfer taxes. Each locality in Hampton Roads can impose additional transfer taxes. These typically range from 0.1% to 0.33% of the sales price. Now, here's the thing. What makes Hampton Roads unique is our regional breakdown. Each of our 7 cities has slightly different tax structures. For example, a $350,000 home purchase will have different total recording and transfer tax costs depending on whether it's in Virginia Beach versus Chesapeake versus Norfolk. Now, also worth noting for our military clients is Virginia offers some tax exemptions for active duty military members under certain conditions. These typically apply to personal property taxes rather than real estate transfer taxes. But listen, it's worth trying to find out about. Now, here's an important tip. These tax amounts are going to be exactly the same regardless of which lender or title company you use because they're set by law. So while you can shop around for better deals on other closing costs, these government fees are fixed fees. Now, prepaids and escrows make up a significant portion of your closing costs, and they often catch buyers by surprise because the amounts can be substantial. These aren't fees that go to the lender or the title company. They're your own money being collected in advance for future expenses. So stay with me for a moment because I want to break down what these include in Hampton Roads for 2025. Now, first and foremost, there is a homeowner's insurance premium. Lenders are going to require you to pay your first years of homeowner's insurance premium in full at closing. In Hampton Roads, our proximity to the coast means insurance rates tend to be higher than the national average. Currently, expect to pay about $1,500 to $2,200 annually for a home that's about $350,000. Now, with properties closer to the water in Virginia Beach or Norfolk that command higher premiums than inland locations in Chesapeake or Suffolk. Now, there's also a homeowner's insurance escrow. Beyond the first year's premium, lenders typically collect 2 to 3 months of insurance payments to establish your escrow account. This adds another $250 to $550 to your closing costs, so you want to definitely be aware of that. Now, there's a property tax escrow. Similar to insurance, lenders are going to collect several months of property taxes up front for your escrow account. In Hampton Roads, property tax rates vary significantly by city. Virginia Beach's rate is currently 99 cents per $100 of assessed value, while Norfolk is at $1.25, Portsmouth at $1.30, and Chesapeake is at $1.05. For a $350,000 home, this means your tax escrow collection could range from $1,700 to $2,200 depending on what Hampton Roads city that you choose to live in. There's also prepaid interest. You'll pay interest on your loan from the closing date through the end of the month. This means closing at the end of the month minimizes this cost. For example, on a $337,750 loan at 6.5% interest, each day of prepaid interest costs about $60. So closing on the 10th versus the 28th of the month could be a difference of over $1,000 in your closing costs. You want to definitely check with your lender and find out from them what's the best time of month for you to close. Now, if applicable, flood insurance for properties in flood zones, which includes significant portions of Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Hampton, and Portsmouth, you're going to need to prepay flood insurance. Annual premiums typically range from $600 to $2,500 for higher risk areas. This is a particularly important consideration in our region given our extensive waterways and coastal exposure. I recently worked with a wonderful family purchasing their first home in Norfolk. Their total prepaids and escrows came to nearly $6,000, which included $1,850 for annual homeowners insurance, $375 for 2 months of insurance escrow, $2,250 for 5 months of property tax escrow, $1,425 for prepaid interest because they closed on the 8th of the month. Now, this portion of closing costs varies dramatically based on your closing date, property location, and property value. Military buyers using VA loans should note that while VA loans offer many advantages, they still require these prepaid amounts, which often makes VA loans require more cash at closing than many service members expect. So you always want to talk with your lender and ask these questions up front before you get to the closing table. Now, here's one key point to remember. While these amounts may feel like costs, they're actually your money being collected in advance for expenses that you're going to have to pay anyway. Your escrow account is simply holding these funds to pay your taxes and insurance when they come due so that you don't have to worry about paying them every single month. Okay, so beyond lender fees and government charges, there are several services required to complete your home purchase that come with their own fees. Now, these third-party charges are an unavoidable part of the closing process. Now, one of these fees is a home appraisal. Now, in 2025, Hampton Roads appraisals typically cost around $500 to $750 for a standard property. However, if you're getting a unique property like a waterfront home, a historic property, or a luxury property, that can mean that your appraisal could be higher with fees up to about $1,200. Now, VA appraisals often run slightly higher due to their specific VA requirements for an appraisal. Now, another fee is a home inspection. And while technically it's not a closing cost because you're going to pay for this before closing, it's an important expense for you to budget for. You can expect to pay around $400 to $600 for a standard home inspection, with additional costs for specialized inspections like a termite and moisture that the seller usually pays for, a mold inspection, maybe you'll want a chimney or an HVAC inspection. See, these additional inspections are often worth the investment in Hampton Roads because you never know what's going on. Now, there's also a title search and homeowner's insurance. This is a significant expense that protects both you and your lender. A title search examines public records to confirm that the seller has the right to transfer ownership of their home to you. Now, in Hampton Roads, when it comes to title, you can expect to pay $300 to $500 for the title search, $500 to $800 for lender's title insurance, which is required, and then $700 to $1,200 for owner's title insurance, which is optional. Now, I do sometimes advise my clients to purchase title insurance, especially where there may be an older home involved that has a lot of a complex ownership history. I worked with a buyer that was looking to purchase a home, I think it was like built in the 1940s, and the title search revealed an undischarged lien from the 80s or 90s that needed to be resolved before closing could proceed. So thankfully, the owner did have owner's title insurance. Now, there's also a settlement fee. This is what you pay the closing attorney or the title company to conduct your closing. In Hampton Roads, settlement fees typically range from $400 to $700. Some companies charge fixed fees while others base it on the loan amount. Now, another expense is a survey. While it's not always required, surveys are highly recommended in Hampton Roads due to our many waterfront properties, older neighborhoods with uncertain boundaries, or flood zone considerations. Now, it's not for everyone, but a basic boundary survey is going to cost somewhere between $400 to $700, while more detailed elevation surveys can cost up to or over $1,000, especially if a flood zone is involved. Now, there's a small fee called a courier or a wire fee that's no more than about $75, but it covers the secure transfer of documents and funds. Now, here's an interesting aspect of Hampton Roads closing costs, and it's how they vary by property type. For instance, I'm working with a family who's purchasing a condo in Chesapeake, and the condo association has a $250 document review fee and a $350 transfer fee, which if you were purchasing a single family home that was not in a condo association, you wouldn't have to pay those fees. So that's something that you definitely want to be made aware of as well. Now, many of these third-party fees are necessary. I want you guys to understand that some are negotiable and or shoppable. For example, you can often choose your own title company rather than automatically using the one that your lender suggests. I have several title companies that I have absolutely excellent relationships with, so when it comes time, I can definitely connect you with someone. Now, I found that the variances in between the fees between the different providers is relatively small, like usually no more than a couple $100 for the entire package of your title services, but it's still every dollar counts. So even if you're only going to save a couple of $100, it might be worth shopping around. Now, if you want to learn more about how home ownership is more than real estate, it's about creating generational wealth. It's about being a good steward. And most importantly, it's about God's promises. Make sure you check out my new book, Home Ownership God's Way. You can grab it on Amazon or just reach out to me directly. I'll get you a signed copy. Okay, now there's some good news. There are several strategies to reduce your closing costs in Hampton Roads, and let me share some proven approaches that have saved my clients thousands of dollars over the years. Are you ready for this? All right, let's get into it. First and foremost, one of the biggest things that we can do is negotiate seller concessions. Now, I have to give the disclaimer. In our current market, it's often possible to negotiate for the seller to contribute towards your closing costs. Now, depending on your loan type, sellers can contribute up to 6% of the purchase price for FHA loans, up to 4% for conventional loans with less than 10% down, and up to 9% for VA loans. But the typical contribution is generally about 3%. So I recently helped a first-time home buyer in Suffolk negotiate a $7,500 seller concession toward closing costs, which covered nearly all of their expenses beyond the down payment. So one of the biggest things that we can look into for you guys is negotiating seller concessions. Now, we can also close at the end of the month. As we mentioned earlier, you pay prepaid interest from your closing date through the end of the month. So closing on the 28th versus closing on the 5th could save you hundreds of dollars in prepaid interest. Another thing we want to do is we want to compare these lender offers. Different lenders have vastly different fee structures. I always recommend my clients get loan estimates from at least 2 to 3 different lenders, including a local Hampton Roads bank or credit union, a national mortgage lender, or a mortgage broker who can shop multiple options. Now, I always prefer working with a local lender because they know what's happening here in Hampton Roads. The differences can be substantial. One of my buyer clients saved over $2,800 in lender fees just by switching from their initially chosen national lender to a local one that I recommended with more competitive fees. So another thing you can do is ask for lender credits. Some lenders offer credits towards your closing costs in exchange for a slightly higher interest rate. Now, while this increases your monthly payment, it reduces your upfront cash needs. So you want to weigh your options. This approach can be particularly valuable in today's market where many buyers are stretching to meet higher down payment requirements. Now, something else we can do is utilize down payment assistance programs. Virginia has several programs that can help with closing costs. The Virginia Housing Development Authority, or VHDA, offers grants specifically for closing costs. The VHDA Plus Second Mortgage can cover both down payment and closing costs. And then several Hampton Roads cities have their own assistance programs, including Norfolk's Come Home to Norfolk and Virginia Beach's Workforce Housing Program. I have a client now that's getting a $14,000 grant from the city of Suffolk, so it's definitely worth looking into these programs. Another thing we can do is shop around for title insurance. While the variance isn't very large, you can potentially save $200 to $400 by shopping around for title services rather than automatically using your lender's preferred provider. Something else we can do is look for military discounts. Many Hampton Roads businesses offer military discounts, including some title companies, home inspectors, and insurance providers. These typically range from 5 to 15% off of their standard fees. Something else we can do that we want to think about is timing your property tax payment. In Virginia, property taxes are paid in arrears for the period that just passed. Depending on when you close relative to the tax cycle in your specific Hampton Roads city, you may be able to reduce the amount needed in your tax escrow. We can also consider consolidating multiple closings in one day. If you're selling one home and buying another, try to schedule both closings on the same day. Now, this may not always work depending on what city you're in, but this can sometimes reduce total cost through shared services. Now, as someone who believes in being a good steward of your resources, I always encourage my clients to explore all of your options. Friends, every dollar that you save on closing costs or other fees associated with purchasing your home can go toward making your new home feel like it's yours. So I want to make sure that you're very aware of all the options that we have for you so that you can talk with your lenders, talk with your title companies and your other partners to try to save you money. Now, as your realtor, my job is to help you with contracts and show you homes and to do all of the negotiations for you. But I think it's very important for you to understand exactly what's included in your closing costs, so that way when you look at your closing disclosure, it's not like you're seeing it for the first time. If you have any questions or if you have a closing cost story that you want to share, go ahead and comment below. I love to read it. So friends, I hope you enjoyed this closing costs masterclass, because understanding closing costs is very important in order for you to be prepared for your Hampton Roads home purchase. Now, while closing costs can seem overwhelming at first, being informed allows you to properly budget and negotiate effectively. So let's quickly recap what we covered today, because I know we covered a lot. First, closing costs are separate from your down payment. They typically range from 3 to 5% of your purchase price. The biggest components are lender fees, government taxes, prepaids and escrows, and third-party services. Now, Hampton Roads has specific considerations like flood zones, military benefits, and historic properties. There are multiple strategies to reduce your out-of-pocket expenses. You just have to talk to your lender as well as your title company and me as your realtor so we can make sure we guide you. Now, as you prepare for your home purchase in Hampton Roads, I recommend creating a detailed budget that includes both your down payment and your estimated closing costs. If you're wondering about the specific costs for your situation, text me at 757-837-0096 with the price range and area that you're considering, and I'll get with one of my lender partners and we'll provide you with a customized closing cost estimate. I want you to remember, friends, that while closing costs are a necessary part of the home buying process, they should never stand between you and your dream home, because with proper planning, the right negotiator, and the right guidance, you can navigate these expenses without depleting your savings. A lot of my clients are concerned about, hey, will it cost me everything to close on my home? And the good news is, as you learned in this video, it won't. Now, for my military viewers considering using your VA loan benefit, we do offer a free consultation specifically about optimizing your VA loan for minimum out-of-pocket costs. Many of my military clients are surprised to learn how they can purchase with virtually no money out of pocket despite the closing costs that we've discussed. In fact, I've actually helped military buyers and had clients that walked away with a check at closing. So friends, thank you so much for watching today's video. If you found this information on closing costs valuable, please give it a thumbs up and definitely consider subscribing for more insights about Hampton Roads real estate and all of the neighborhoods that we cover. Drop any questions that you have in the comments below. I read every single one, and like I said, I respond personally. You taking the time to learn from my channel, watch my channel, and support me absolutely means the world to me. So if there's any content that you're looking for that I have not covered, if there's any neighborhood that you'd like to know more about, if there's any real estate topic whatsoever that you want me to cover, friends, just drop a comment below, or you can text me at 757-837-0096. I'd love the opportunity to help walk alongside you with your home buying or selling journey. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you, and I will see you in the next video.